Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
I recently had a conversation with one of my brothers about memories from when we were kids, different trips we took, different things that we liked to do, and it was so funny. One of the things that I mentioned, he immediately went, yes, and then his wife was like, wait a minute, I had the same experience. What was that experience? Well, when I was a kid, we would go to visit my grandmothers, and they lived in Mississippi. And one of the grandmothers lived close to the state line of Tennessee. And over in Tennessee, in Nashville, was an amusement park that we loved to go to. But it was an all-day thing. We'd get up super early in the morning. We would drive up to that amusement park. We would spend all day in the hot sunshine. And then that night, we would load back into the car and drive home. My grandmother driving us back to her little town in Mississippi. There was something about driving home when we were kind of hot and a little bit sunburned, but she had this blinker on her old Oldsmobile car. That was the maker of that car. And that blinker had this really interesting sound. I don't know if I can make it correctly or not. I'm going to try it. It sounded kind of like, I hope you can hear that. It kind of sounded like that. There was something about being drowsy and sleepy and a little sunburned on my nose, and hearing that blinker sound, it felt like one of the most peaceful things ever. I'm Julie Lyles Carr. This is God on the Go, where we help you make the minutes matter. We're going to be talking about what is peace. When we talk about what it means to not always feel some of the stress that we sometimes do or the worry, what does it mean to feel peaceful? Well, sometimes when we're trying to figure out how something feels, one way to think about it is the way we know it doesn't feel. And there are a lot of people in the world today, and maybe you too, that you feel really anxious or stressed or worried about things. You may feel it in your body when you feel anxious or stressed or worried about things. You might notice that your hands are kind of tight, or your shoulders are a little tight, or you might find out that your tummy doesn't feel so great. We have lots of different ways that feel like worry, feel like stress. And we oftentimes think about that as being the opposite of what peace feels like. So when you think about peace, sometimes it kind of helps to think about what peace doesn't feel like. And that can help you recognize those moments when you maybe do feel peace, when you don't feel quite as stressed or you aren't quite as worried about something. It makes me think about the story in the Bible about Jonah. Do you remember Jonah? I mean, we think a lot about him as the guy who got swallowed by the big fish because he was supposed to go and talk to the people of Nineveh about God, but instead he tried to run away from God. But there's something I want to point out about Jonah that we often don't think about, is he was making some of those decisions because he was doing the opposite of what peace would do. He thought he was going to find peace by trying to run away from the thing God had asked him to do. But we can't find peace, real peace, away from God. Real peace is when we are with God and we trust that He's going to take care of us. Sometimes in our world today, we want to think that if we can just make a situation go away that we don't want to be a part of, or maybe if this one thing happens, then we'll have peace, or maybe if this other thing doesn't happen, we'll have peace. But there's no way to have real peace if we aren't running straight to God. Here's the other thing about a peace that comes from God. You can have feelings of being concerned about something or a little scared and still have God's kind of peace. God's kind of peace reminds us that He's always with us. He is going to take care of us, that things are going to be okay because we're going to be with Him forever. It reminds me of the verse found in the book of Romans, Romans 12:18. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. And you know what? I think that means we're also supposed to live at peace with ourselves, to remind ourselves when those feelings come that feel the opposite of peace, it's a great reminder to go toward God. If you are feeling the opposite of peace, what is the 3-3-3 rule for when you feel anxious, for when you aren't feeling peaceful? You just ask yourself and notice these 3 things. What are 3 things you can see, 3 things you can hear, and 3 ways to move your body? 3-3-3. Because sometimes when we get scared, we can just find that our thoughts are just going wild. And this is a way in the 3-3-3 rule that you can get yourself a little calmer. You can notice what's going on around you, and you can remember that God is there for you. God has created the things you see. God has created the things that you can hear. God's created your body and the way that you can move it. And those things can help calm you to remember that God is your peace. I want to thank our friends at George Fox University, where every student is known and appreciated. Check out George Fox University for your students' next step in their education. And I will see you next time on God on the Go.